Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thanks for coming in and tuning into this Autodesk Virtual Academy webcast. My name is Rick Garvey. I'm the marketing manager here at KETIV, and I'm joined by one of KETIV's application engineers, Jorge Fernandez. Today's topic will go over how to integrate manufacturing models into Revit. And if you have any questions during the session, go ahead and type them into the questions panel to the right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jorge to give you guys some more information and do a live demonstration.
All right, thanks, Rick. So good morning, everybody. Again, this is Jorge Fernandez. I've been with KETIV for quite some time now, and I've had some experience in manufacturing, and architectural, and civil, actually. Yes, my niche is in manufacturing, but I've also had hands-on experience in construction and architectural. So I understand some of those gaps that are sometimes going on between the two worlds, where we have manufactured products, of course, and they need to go into, a Revit model, for example. So that's the focus of today. Is I want to make sure that we all have a better grasp of it, know some of the things that you're able to do, and how you can do some of those. There's only so much we can cover in 30 minutes, of course, so we'll cover as much as we can, and I'll leave you with a few links and tips as well at the end to make sure you're well on your way on being able to integrate these types of models. So the goal for today is I'm going to start off actually by kind of taking a small step back and making sure we're all on the same page as far as BIM goes. BPM, these are a couple acronyms that you'll be hearing if you haven't heard of them already. I want to also make sure one of the big key things I want to do is some of you on the call might actually be manufacturers and using Revit already, right? So I want to make sure I also identify the capabilities that you have available to you, how you can import these types of models and work with them inside of Revit. So we'll go over some of those things today as much as we can in 30 minutes, of course. So to get started, what is BIM? BIM is Building Information Model. So, there's a lot of ways to look at this, and the first thing I'm going to mention is sometimes it's mandated, right? It's a part of the project where you're being told, hey, are you BIM compliant? That's a very common thing that people are getting today. So a call that we get a lot, for example, is can I get some BIM software? So BIM is not a software. BIM is more of an idea. It's more of being able to supply someone a model that's more intelligent, not just for lack of a better word, a dumb solid. Sometimes it's simply recommended so that you'll be able to collaborate better and be able to see the models in 3D to have more information. Really what it comes down to is having a model that has parameters to it. Perhaps you might want to change those parameters, has property information to it, and most of all comes up on the scheduling. So if you're a manufacturer, what you want to make sure is you want to ensure that your product is going to come out in the scheduling. Manufacturing call that usually a bill of materials, or something similar to that at least. And as an architect, I want to make sure this is exactly what I've stated that that we want to make sure is implemented into this building. So then the next acronym is Building Product Manufacturer. So this is usually the actual manufacturer of the product or the designer of the product. This can range in so many different things. It could be anything from furniture like a chair or a desk. It could be a sink, cabinets. It can be structural steel. It could be maybe a skid, a platform, something that gets inserted into an already existing building. There's a lot of different aspects, right? So we'll touch on a couple, at least for today. But basically anything that's going into a building needs to be supplied to someone who's using Revit, which is what's mostly used out there. The good news here is we're talking Autodesk, so Revit and Inventor. Inventor being the 3D modeler that a lot of manufacturers use, talk together, right? So they collaborate with each other, associative to each other. Before I go, into the actual product and take a look at it, there's a few other things I want to make sure we make clear. Some of you might have already heard of the LOD, the level of detail for this project. So basically it comes down to, is it just going to be a block that's a placeholder for the object? Is it going to be fully detailed where you're the one who's actually installing it and you need to know every piece of it? So depending where you are on that is what you're going to want to know first before you get started, regardless if you're a manufacturer, contractor, or an architect. So it usually comes down to being part of a 350 or a 300. What this means basically is if you're at a LOD of 300, you're going to usually be an architect or an MEP integrator, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. You just simply need to know its function and some of the space requirements. You might not necessarily need to know the manufacturer of it. You just know this is the space it's going to take up. I need to plan for this. It's a placeholder. That's all it is. Accounting for real estate of that file or model, if you will. So on the left, you're seeing, for example, a sink, and you're seeing a lighting fixture, but it's just the block for it. It's just a simple box. On the right, you're looking at a level of detail of 350, where you're usually going to be, the contractor or the installer. You need to coordinate how these connections are going to be made. You're using different products, perhaps already, like Navisworks, just to kind of give you an example. And you do need to know exactly who the manufacturer is, because either you're going to go look at its specs, maybe talk to the manufacturer in some cases, and you're going to need the actual model number. So we can do both of these, right? It just depends. You need to identify where you're at first so you know what steps you need to take in order to prep for this. So if you're an architect, the thing you'll want to know is, first of all right, I have something that's not necessarily in Revit. Maybe it's an HVAC system, a sink, or something like that. That's a specific one. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to create this myself, or do I want to import it? You can import SAT files, actually, SAT files, or ACES files, they're also known as, into Revit. So you can do this in-house, basically. Your other option is you could do third-party and have someone create the model for you. We do have people that we work with that do this. We've done this type of work as well for some of our customers. So that is something that is available. Or you can ask the manufacturer for it. Sometimes I've come to find out that it's not that it wasn't available, it's that no one asked for it. So, a lot of times ask your manufacturer, if you're an architect, to supply the model if they can. A simplified version is the most important key factor. If they have problems trying to find that out, let us know. Maybe we can help you out. And also, even when you do ask for the model from the manufacturer, you might want to identify, is it one single component, or do I want like a family of different sizes to choose from? Sometimes they might be willing to give you that, and we just haven't asked for it. Or maybe the manufacturer doesn't know that they can supply this. We can help with that too, of course. Now, if you're a manufacturer, or even if you're an architect and you want to kind of get the manufacturer started for you, what it takes is this person needs to simplify the model so that you're not seeing all the bolts and nuts necessarily, but maybe just the connections, for example. Once they do that, inside of the Autodesk Inventor solution, you're able to do a BIM authoring where you can say where the connections are. You can say which way is a UCS so that it's pointing the right direction. And then you can actually supply a Revit native model, an RFA, or a Revit family, as some of you might know it. If you're an AEC customer, then consumer, of the actual information, then you want to first find out, where's the file coming from? Is it an SAT file? Can they supply it? So you go to the manufacturer and you might ask them for one of two things, a Revit family or an ADSK file. The difference between these two typically is that an ADSK file, because these are two formats that we can output from this Inventor product I'm talking about, is simply you're going to place it in, let's say an HVAC system, and then once I put it in Revit, then I'm going to hook up to it, the connections, the ductwork, and so forth. A Revit family is something that you might actually adapt to a wall, a ceiling, or something like that, so that it makes the cutout, so that it gets placed in the right height, or something like that, to give you an example. So those are the two different usual file types we'll deal with, but again, SAT is one of them as well. All right, so now that I've given you that little, I guess you might call it a history lesson, we'll jump into the live demonstration and show you what it is, first of all, that a manufacturer can supply you so you know what you're asking for. So let's go ahead and switch first to Inventor, which is a 3D modeling software. So parametric modeler, that is. So much like in the architectural world we have Revit, in the manufacturing world we have something like Inventor. I won't go and make this an Inventor demo by any means, just simply want to tell you what it is that they can do so you know what you're asking for. So they have this model of a lighting fixture, for example. We'll keep it simple first. With this lighting fixture, then, what this person can do is we have an actual BIM tab that they can go to and actually use these BIM exchange features to be able to bring it to Revit. We even have a check Revit feature so that the features that get created with this actually are good to go in Revit as well, so you know you'll get good geometry. With this BIM exchange tool, they have the capability, and you have the capability by yourself as well. By the way, if you decide to take it on in-house, this is a capability that you can purchase Inventor, of course, and get it for this sole purpose. Manufacturers likewise will maybe want to get Revit for creating families for their customers. So, for example, if there's a cable tray, I can click on cable tray, and then it'll ask me, it'll prompt me for what type of shape I'm working with. Give it actual size to it, and have a connector so that I have that ready to go in Revit. The same goes for all the rest of this. In this case, for example, we have an electrical connection. So if I click on electrical connector, I can come over here, select that edge, and be able then to further define it just a tad more. So if I go and edit this, for example, you'll notice these are the different types we have. From communication type of electrical connectors to data, fire alarm, power balance in this case, security, and telephone. It doesn't know that it's a light fixture yet at this point. The other thing I bring up, this is kind of important. I want to make sure I stress this part, because whether you're creating the file or asking for this file, in manufacturing we tend to look at the z-axis as our front view, where in architectural and civil we look at the z-axis as up and down, where we put the plan down, and I'm sorry, I thought I had the camera on, but we actually look at the plan view on the table, right, and that's the z-axis. So that is two differences between the two industries, and is a very important thing, that feature that we have here available to us, to be able to tell it how we want the UCS to look. We have these features also to check the design. This simply gives you a little summary of what this file is, what kind of type we've chosen for this component, its general dimensions, some of the other properties and things that were filled out for the electrical connector as well. Now if we go over to export building components, this is where we can actually choose, are we doing an RFA or an ADSK? We actually do have IFC as well for electrical boards. Now that's just simply a file type. That doesn't change what we have down here at the bottom. So what we have here is the ability to choose what component type, so that when the scheduling gets done, this component goes to the right area of components, right, or for the scheduling. So we can go down through here. I won't go through all of these, but you can see some of these are like openings and passageways, sanitary, HVAC is in here, electric power and lighting, and basically what we have here is just a general non-directional light is what I'm picking from. We can also filter through these, by the way. There's different categories from Revit, so that we don't have to view this entire list necessarily every single time. And we can also do a search and see if the category we're looking for is actually on here. Or, I'm sorry, I actually mean the product classification. So that's a nice little way there to be able to classify that so that it goes into Revit as a true BIM model. This is what BIM really means, a building information model, a model that has intelligence behind it, information. The next thing here is I can choose the orientation. Now, I actually positioned it already so that, because I wanted the Z to go up this direction. You'll notice on the left-hand side we have the original axis. But right here it's looking at my view cube and identifying the Z as up here. So I can just simply use this orientation of the view cube. I do have the option here to choose model origin, or if I had a UCS, I would have that to choose from here. And finally, the model properties. This is, again, part of that I in the BIM, that you can come in here and give more description. If I'm a product manufacturer, I want to make sure this information shows up on a schedule. If I'm the architect, again, same thing. I want to make sure this shows up. So I can say KETIV light, for example. Manufacturer will say KETIV. Give it a model number so they know what to order. And maybe a link here so they can go to the website. And of course I can put, you know, a direct website to that actual product so they'll see the spec sheet too. So I hope you see so far that this is also to help the architects, right? Now, hopefully you're seeing that this is, again, that eye in the BIM, and that you're able to get much more information working this way if you know what to ask your vendor for. I apply the changes, say OK, and I'll save it out. All right, we'll just put it right here. We'll call it wall lamp AVA for now. So that's part one, right? This is what the manufacturer can do for you. Now I, as an architect, need to take this model and put it in my Revit. So now let's get into the meat here. Get over into Revit. So now that I'm inside of Revit, oh, I'm sorry, there was one white box. I forgot to click OK too. It does give you a translation report too, in case you wanted to make sure everything was successful, all the services came through and connections and so forth. If you want to see that, basically it's just an HTML file that shows you the location of the file and gives you a little more information, making sure that everything was successful. All right, now let's go to Revit. So in Revit now, I'm not just going to go ahead and insert it here because it doesn't know to attach to a wall. I would basically be bringing it into a space. So what we need to do is we need to create our own Revit family. You could just bring it into 3D space, right? But it makes it a little more difficult. Let's make it attached to a wall. In order to do that, I'll come over here to New and say Family. And you'll notice there's templates here, RFTs, Revit Family Templates. I can choose from any one of these templates here. You don't have to do it this way, by the way. You could just start off with a default one and create your own wall, tell it how you want it to line up exactly. It doesn't have to be one of these necessarily. I'm going to go with a lighting fixture wall base here so it gets it started for me. There are tutorials, by the way. I've seen a lot of YouTube links that show you exactly how to create this wall and get it all prepped and so forth. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load that light fixture into here. Load family. And I believe I saved it right up here. Well, lamp AVA, there it is. All right. Now that it's in here, now all I've done here is loaded it inside of this Revit project or this Revit family. Now, in order to insert, I'm going to grab it over here from my left-hand side on the project browser and actually drag it into here. Oh. Let's do a little 3D view so we can see it better. And we'll make this, we'll shade this here. Makes it a little bit easier too. Let's do that one more time. There it is. Now the way I do this here, there's different methods of course, but I like to just go over here to my top view and maybe right view and so forth to get it into the right place. In some cases I might toggle back and forth between shaded and wireframe, for example. I'm going to go to wireframe in this case again, and you'll see that I can just simply move this up like so. I can move to my different views and start to place it where it needs to go. By the way, right now I just did a zoom view because I had it selected. I'll go ahead and rotate it, and then I'll start to actually put it where I want it to. I'll just type in 90 here, just a little quick way to get it into place. And we'll simply move it into place here where the light's at. You notice that it picks up the reference lines here, and I'm going to be able to attach it to this line and actually lock it so that it doesn't move from there as well. Right now, oh, I should have changed the light source. And it's inside of it, we got to move that around. But for now, we'll just keep going with this so we can see the actual light get into place. I'll just go to a side view as well. Make sure it's correct. Line it up to the center. Good to go. Now, I could take this a step further, by the way. You know, we could have a whole different webcast on just Revit families because there's so many different things you could do, so many different ways and approaches, and depending on what it is you're working on. I could dimension this from the bottom, for example. We'll move forward with this for now. We'll go ahead and save this. And I guess I'll save it in my documents. We'll find it faster there probably. All right. Now I can actually just hit load into project, so that the project that I already had open, it'll just go ahead and put it in there, so I can actually bring it in. I see it's over here, and I can just click and drag it onto this wall. You notice that no magic tricks here. I did it, no smoke and mirrors. I simply just grabbed it, dragged it in with everything that you saw me do right now. I could put it into place or multiple ones. Again, I didn't give it a dimension from the bottom, so we're not seeing that right now, but that is something we have the ability to do. Now, if you also did the lighting correctly and everything, you would actually see that in here as well once you actually do the rendering, so you can see it all in place. So whether you're a manufacturer or an architect, you can take these models and reuse them over and over again. Now I see we're already at 1222. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different types of geometry you can do. You know, if you have a sink, for example, or actually one that I do want to at least mention real quickly is, you know, if you have something that has piping in it and you need to bring this in. If you're a manufacturer, first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you simplify this. So we do have a tutorial that I'll give you at the end of this, by the way, on how to do that, so I won't go into all the details, but basically what it takes is, again, going to that BIM Exchange environment that allows us to simplify this and make just bodies out of it. Maybe plug up some of these holes, for example, do what we call a shrink wrap, basically, and simplify this model. There's different methods to do that. There's a lot of different ways depending on what it is you're working on. So we do have, you know, we do consult customers a lot of the times on what's the best method for them. And then this can be simply inserted into the Revit model. So in summary, we went over BIM, being Building Information Model, building product manufacturing, and what it comes down to is if you're an AEC, in other words, Architectural Engineering and Construction, you want to ask yourself, can you reuse your manufacturer's model so you don't have to create it again from scratch? If you're a manufacturer, you should take advantage of this. All you have to consider is you need to simplify the model and ask the customer what type of file they want. Or if you want to, you can also supply them a more intelligent family where you can say, you can actually use something called Configurator 360 to do what we call, I'm sorry, the name escaped me for a second, BIM on demand, so that you can have them go onto a website, basically a link that you supply them, and be able to download it and be able to have them pick which sizes they actually want from that. So really quick, actually, before we go to Q&A, I do want to talk about one other thing is there are some recommended next steps, so don't leave just yet. There are some, I'll give you in just a second the links to these videos that we have. There's tailored training that we do for this as well, where we actually help you come up with a BIM workflow that works for you. And most importantly, there is another session similar to this tomorrow, more geared towards the manufacturers of this. So if you are a manufacturer, you have more questions, we can answer those tomorrow as well. Or if you are an architect and you do want your manufacturer to be a little more in tune with you, you know, please, by all means, let us know. We can sign them up for it. And we even have, coincidentally, a webinar on Friday. It just happened to work out these next 3 days. It really did, where we talk about how to make these skid-based designs for, like, filtration systems and pump systems and so forth that sometimes need to go into architectural models and construction. All right, so why don't we go ahead and jump to the Q&A, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Jorge. So we got a couple questions here. First one is from Brian. He asks, how much of the Inventor component can be adjusted in Revit? Size, parameter information, etc.
Oh, that's a great question. There actually is a video that I can send you after this that exists where you can simply say which parameters or dimensions you want to choose and have them modifiable in Revit. Is that a word, modifiable?
Modifiable, I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, you can prep the model so that they get exported basically, and then you just change that parameter or that dimension in Revit.
Great. So Joseph wants to know, he says, I'm a manufacturer and I need to supply Revit models. Can I only use Inventor or do I have to switch to Revit?
Okay. I'm assuming you're thinking of maybe like SolidWorks files and stuff like that. So there's two ways to do it. One is if you do have Pro-E or SolidWorks or something like that, you can export in SAT files. SAT file, you'll be able to just bring it into Revit. You won't have the exact material. You might have to modify just a tad, maybe turn it into a Revit family, for example, but you can do that. What a lot of other customers do actually is they will have a seat of Inventor, bring in that SolidWorks model so that they can do more prep work in Inventor. It just depends where you're more comfortable in, if you're creating native files in Revit or if you have files in Inventor and pushing them to Revit.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like what Craig just wanted to know too is, can I bring in SolidWorks files into Revit? You kind of just touched on that right now.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's the questions we have. Is there a next slide with social media stuff?
Yeah, so if you're interested, I do have these links here. I'm going to go ahead and put them into the chat window. I'll bring that up here. Oops. Yeah, 1 second. There it is. So in the chat window, I'm going to put the first one, which is the AEC exchange. One second. Looks like I had some stuff in the chat window before this. There's one. The other one is Inventor 2017 R2 BIM Content on Demand. So this might be something that if you're an architect, you might want to give to the manufacturers or vendors that you're working with. These are two really good ones. Again, I strongly encourage you. We do have training around this too if you're interested. There are a lot of YouTube videos. We can always recommend one for you if you'd like. And we have an AVA session more towards manufacturing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then we have one on Friday for creating skid-based structures, making a frame, doing an analysis on it, and then doing documentation on it, such as a cut list for fabrication. So if you happen to know somebody that's interested in that, you'd like to collaborate some more, by all means, let us know and we can help you with that.
Very cool. Yeah, and you guys can connect with us in many ways. You can go to our website, KETIV.com. We have a blog that we update pretty frequently. We're pretty active on social media too, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, so keep in touch. And then all these webcasts go on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/KETIV Technologies. So make sure you guys subscribe and keep up to date. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at questions@ketiv.com. We're pretty quick to respond and get you the information you need. But with that, yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.